WarCraft Rumble. This game has been getting early access in loads of different countries, and I've managed to get access to it to play and then create content on. I have been playing a lot of this game. I've made it up to this area here, Hinterlands, where my deck is slightly out-leveled by the enemy. And I want to talk a little bit about the game in depth. If you don't want to stick around for the entire length of the video, perfectly okay. There will be timestamps in the description below that you can click on, and you can figure out different parts of the game. You can hear me talk about different parts of the game, and I'll go in depth in each of the different areas: PvE, PvP, extra mechanics, leveling up the card system, how pay to win the game is, etc. All of that will be covered in the different sections in the timestamps below. What I'm going to do at the start, though, is a TLDR. Is this game good, and is it a Clash Royale killer? The honest answer to is it a Clash Royale killer is probably not. The reason being, and I'll go into this in more detail later, is Clash Royale is beautiful because of its simplicity. The UI is not overclogged. You can jump in, create your deck, and play someone that is usually around your level with relative ease. There aren't all these added bells and whistles. There aren't all these absolutely ridiculous levels and layers of complexity that you've got with WarCraft Rumble. And whilst that does offer some benefits, I think for the wider audience, that simplicity of Clash Royale, and Clash Royale has a deceptive simplicity. There is a lot of nuance and detail in Clash Royale that you get from even just playing those regular normal maps. But with WarCraft Rumble, there is just overt complexity. Like, there's a lot of things going on in this game, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it, but I can very much understand that it's not for everyone. So my honest answer is this a Clash Royale killer? Probably not. Is this a good game? Yes. Is it pay to win? Of course it is. Those are the kind of the basic TLDRs. The other thing about Clash Royale, and this is a problem with all free-to-play games, guys, is that coming into a genre that already has a dominant free-to-play title in it, you have to be ridiculously better than the competition to even hope of gaining some market share. Now, Blizzard does have the advantage. They have created a good game. They've got a very strong IP. Lots of people know about this. But my only caveat is that people who are fond of the Blizzard IP tend to be about my age. There aren't that many young people, I don't think, that are super fond of the Blizzard IP, especially the WarCraft Blizzard IP. So you've got people my age, and my age gamers, they're not usually mobile gamers, especially not at a really high level. So this game's good, but you're going to piss off a lot of people of my age that like Warcraft, just given how pay to win it is. And ultimately, this is just a jazzed up Clash Royale to an extent. It's got a lot more bells and whistles and a lot of different things that you can do. So yeah, that's kind of like my TLDR. But we're going to go into like the specific areas now. I'm going to start with the PvE aspect because it's the area that is the most different. Obviously, Clash Royale not actually having a significant PvE aspect. So I'm going to attempt a level 10 level that I haven't done before. I'm going to just quickly show you some of the basic mechanics of the game. So you have a base here. It essentially is an arrow. It's a little bit like Clash Royale. It fires at enemies. It's weak against siege damage. You'll notice that there are these little gold veins on the map. Spawns gold that can be collected with the miner. So every deck is included a 1 cost kobold miner that will walk up. It won't attack enemies, and it will always prioritize mining gold veins. So that's what the kobold does. There are other cards in the game that do actually have the miner trait that either cost more or do other specific things. They are quite good, but ultimately I find that the kobold is generally fit for purpose. Enemies will have towers. It's called a deploy zone. If you kill that tower and rebuild it for your own, you will be able to deploy units in those areas. There is a switch here which switches the path that your troops take. So if I have any troops that walk up the middle, I can switch them to go left or right. And then there are also things like height advantage. So if you have units up on the high ground, ranged units and flying units will be able to target units on the low ground, but units on the low ground won't be able to target units on the high ground, even if they are ranged. Flying units generally tend to ignore all height differentials. So flying units on the low ground will be able to attack units on the high ground. They just have to have the range to do so. There are a lot of familiar Clash Royale mechanics in here. We are going to give this round a go. I have never done it. I don't know what the unique mechanics are for it, but we will do our very best to see how we get on. So you'll notice that the system is quite familiar if you played Clash Royale. We have a system where we spawn We have a building gold value. And, ooh, as you can see, and then we use that gold to spend certain things. There are units that you can spawn anywhere on the map, like I can there, but they just got obliterated by that guy. And I'm starting to struggle just a little bit now. Okay. My level 11 unit is just about getting it done. I'm going to drop a kind of a tanky unit here. I do want to drop a kobold. My only problem is that I can't drop a kobold until we get... I can probably drop one now because it might walk its way past the tower that's targeting my abomination. Oh, he's going to zap my kobold. So he's zapped my kobold, which is a bit of an issue. I'm going to spawn another general here, and I might spawn some air support for him, which is this guy. So we've now taken one. I do now want to start. I'm going to zap this kobold because I don't want him to get the gold. It's a bit of a sort of an overall net loss for me here, but it's not the worst thing to have ever happened. Right. I'm going to spawn this guy here, and I'm going to spawn this kobold here, because I desperately need to mine this. No! Okay, so the long-ranged hex can actually hit that far away. Alright, I'm struggling. We're going to have to restart. Okay, so we lost. I had no idea what this level was supposed to do. Every time you play, you do get some cards. But we'll try again. We kind of know the deal now. We kind of know what's in this this boss's deck. So let's try again. Right, so... kind of annoying. I really want my tanky unit to begin with. But let's drop him. And let's drop this dude. I'm also going to support with 2 air. Okay, so the long-range bolts are really, really, really powerful and very difficult for me to deal with. But they are single target, so my overall... Good, okay. So if I just spawn a load of really useless units, I should be able to spawn a miner in a minute as well to just pick up this stuff here, so I can. Nice. And they'll get distracted. That miner should give me enough to build an abomination over here. You really do want to focus on primarily just... You really want to focus on taking the kind of the structures and neutral objectives, because these deploy zones, A, reduce the areas in which your enemy can deploy, but also they just, yeah, they make it a lot easier for you when you're trying to sort of navigate your way to the sort of the upper ends of the levels. I'm going to drop these again here. And that should give enough time. Oh, you can see that almost dropped in. Now I'm going to definitely get the mining done here. I'm probably going to drop Baron Rivendare here. Oh, my dogs have found a cat. Nice. Going to drop this here. And I'm going to try and cycle through to my Kobold Miner once more. I'm going to zap him because he should die. Yeah. And that's a cycle spell anyway. Oh, my dogs are going mental. Sorry if you can hear them in the background. They just heard a cat and can't get outside. So now they're going into... I'm going to mute for a second. All right, they stopped their little chorus. All right, so we learnt from the first round what to do, and we kind of won. We are a slightly lower deck level than this guy. This is a level 10. My average deck level is like 9.4, but we managed to find the strategy, and we outplayed, and we ended up getting the win. So there you go. That's kind of what the PvE experience is like. Those are the basic mechanics. And that's why I quite like the PvE experience, because you can definitely outplay some pure level disadvantages with the right kind of deck and the right understanding on how to play the level. In terms of how that level compares to your standard level across the board, I would say that's about average. There are definitely levels that are significantly harder. There are definitely levels that are easier. So now that I've talked about the kind of the basic mechanics of the game, and you've seen me play a level, it's one of the harder levels, and definitely had some thought go into it. I'll talk about the general PvE experience because there's quite a lot to it. So it's fairly linear in the sense that you kind of need to complete each level as you go along. It starts at the start with like level 1 and 2 decks, teaches you about the basic mechanics. It's pretty good at introducing like gold mining. It then introduces you like height advantages. It then introduces you, things like meeting stones and deploy zones. It also teaches you about the switches that you saw. So you'll learn all that very quickly at the start of the game. You'll find that you'll speed through a lot of the early levels, and as a free-to-play player, I reckon you could get through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I reckon as a free-to-play player, spending absolutely nothing, you'll find that you'll get to about here before you maybe start to hit the wall on some of the levels. Like Cairn Bloodhoof, for instance, is a very difficult level if you don't have the levels on your deck to support getting through it. I've bought one thing. I bought something like an Arclight booster, and that allowed me to progress just a little bit further. As you see now, I got through it like most of Lord of Rayon, and I'm now in the hinterlands. Well, I haven't got that much further by spending around 18 GBP. That's all I've spent on the game so far, £18 GBP. Each level is quite unique. They all have a varying complexity. Most levels have very unique mechanics. One of my favorites was Inquisitor Whitemane, is that there are 2 bosses. You have to kill them at exactly the same time, otherwise, or like near enough the same time, otherwise they resurrect each other. For those of you that are WarCraft fans, you'll recognize that from the Scarlet Monastery. But yeah, very, very cool like level designs. The PvE experience has got some thought into it. There is definitely some outplay potential in PvP. It's not all about the levels of your cards. But otherwise, a very kind of well thought out and fun PvE experience. The levels that your cards gain will mostly affect how you do in the PvE experience in this game. The PvP experience is a little bit different, and I'm going to talk about that soon. But they do a little bit of equalizing. So they equalize the playing field a little bit in PvP, which does make, I think, it a bit more palatable than something like Clash Royale, where there isn't that sort of same level of equalization. Although I know Clash Royale has got some card level equalization going on. The other bit of PvE is there are these things called dungeons, and what I'm going to show you is a dungeon. I'm going to play through it, and I'm going to show you the last level of a dungeon, because again, they do have cool, unique mechanics. And I'm going to talk about the decks in a minute, but each deck is built around having a leader in a deck. So on the dungeons, you can only enter on each week with a certain leader. So for instance, it's Blackrock week this week, so you can either enter with General Dracasath or Rend Blackhand, both of which do very different things. Rend Blackhand is very much all about flying monsters, and General Dracasath is mostly about dealing elemental damage, and you build decks around the unique mechanic of your leader. The reason I like Baron Rivendare as the leader so much is that you don't really need to build around him specifically. He just has a very generally useful mechanic. But for instance, like General Dracasath and Rend, he makes your flying units cost less. So you kind of need to build a deck that's like primarily focused around flying units to get the most out of Rend Blackhand. But I'll talk about the decks in a bit more detail after this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get to the final level, and I'm going to show you what a dungeon actually nets you. One criticism that I have of the dungeons is they only refresh every 7 days. I think once we get to like full release, a lot of the player feedback is probably going to be, that's quite long and I'm bored. But I will say that they are good fun, and they do give you quite generous rewards for your leaders if you can complete them. So I'm going to do a level 8 dungeon, so you can complete the dungeon as many times as you want on each leader. You will get a reward for the leader every single time that you complete it, but every time you complete it, the level of the dungeon increases. So eventually it will go to the point where you just cannot compete because the dungeon is out leveling your deck by a significant margin. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into this dungeon. I'm going to get to the final level. There are 3 levels per dungeon, and then I'm going to show you what it's like to beat the final level in a dungeon and then what you get for it at the end. Alright, I'm a little scared to admit that this actually took me about 6 attempts to do, and the increase in level has been difficult. Now, what I do like about dungeons is every boss that you fight and every time that you enter, you get this relic choice. It very much reminds me a little bit of like a roguelike game. The only criticism that I have right now, and it's not that much of a criticism because I know that this will get better, but the only criticism that I do have right now is that the choices are fairly limited. I'm just having a look at your flying minions gain stealth. That seems really OP. Your flying minions evade the first. Your flying minions gain stealth seems absolutely nutty, especially for this level. So let's see how it goes. So you do get to make some meaningful choices. I've got a very flying orientated deck. The reason I've got a very flying orientated deck, you're going to see, without flying minions, this level is practically impossible. So we're going to just kind of get into it. The toxic sludge deals damage to anything that's on the ground. Okay. I'm just going to drop these two. So these guys have got stealth before they kind of even show themselves, which means they'll probably go straight to that turret and blow it up, which is great. Okay, so they've kind of like gone all in on my small miner, which is great. Look at how much they've thrown at me right here. I'm going to wait until they start to... So I've got stealth, so I should be able to like burn all of them, burn them all. Nice. Okay, this is great. I'm going to drop another one here. They have stealth. Oh, this is actually so good. I'm going to drop a miner over here. This level has become significantly easier with this stealth ability. God, the gargoyles are so slow, but they do so much damage to towers. You can watch... yeah. I'm going to drop stealth here. I'll also drop him here in stealth as well. This is fantastic. Oh, nice. Okay, that's the burrowing. I did tell you guys that there were other types of miners. I like this level as well because you immediately pop your eggs as well for the little egg dudes. I'm going to drop a stealth over here. I think we're going to win though because, yeah, we've already just... As soon as my gargoyles get there, we're going to deal so much damage to this guy. Okay, so this level became significantly easier with stealth. I struggled very heavily on the first level. And this level became significantly easier with flying units that had stealth, especially because I'm running Gargoyle, which is just OP for taking down towers if it just can't be seen. Because it won't reveal itself until it attacks the tower. That's the good thing about stealth in this game. You don't reveal yourself until you attack. Alright, well, I've actually always found that this final level is pretty easy. Unstable Concoction is not great, but I'll take it anyway because I think it's the best. It applies to the most units that I've got. And this is the final level, and I'm going to show you. It's quite fun. It feels like a boss level. It's got a very boss level feel to it. There are these 3 heads that you have to kill, then the waterfall is going to recede, and you'll see what happens. Okay, here. So, I'm not going to drop anything too hazardly right now. I'm just going to drop this here, and then I am going to drop him. Don't have to worry. These guys will get dealt with, so I'm not that worried. Watch this. They're just going to... How much have they dropped over this side? They've dropped a few things over this side, but they're going to take forever to get here. That's amazing. That stealth right there has been fantastic. The only problem I'm going to have is that I can't actually kill the harpies without an air-to-air support thing. So, a big incoming wave over this side, so I am going to drop some eggs, which should help deal with the majority of this. And they go stealth, which is fantastic. And then I am going to drop another gargoyle over this side, which is great. And then I'm going to drop another one here. This guy's got stealth and he's gone like straight to my tower, but I'm not that bothered about it. Oh, nice. We are going to take out those raptors before we move on, which is fantastic. We should kill this head now. I'm going to drop another guy over here. So gargoyles avoid everything that isn't a tower. So they won't attack anything else on the floor. That's why they're so slow moving. They're like an air siege unit. I'm going to drop him here, and I'm going to drop him here. So these, now I've got the height advantage. I shouldn't have any problems with them getting through this bridge. And they don't actually have much anti-air. There is a little bit of gold over there, so I'm going to do that. I'm also going to drop another siege goblin here. They have got one of those guys going down on my base, so I should probably... Oh, he's dead already, never mind. I need to capture this. I've just realised that we haven't actually captured this, so I'm going to pop some eggs down there to capture it. And I think, to be honest with you, we should basically be done at this point. So, oh god, they have dropped an absolute bomb. But it's a load of ground units, so they're just going to get slaughtered in just a minute. Yeah, I mean, they just got absolutely a Bat Rider is, in my opinion, one of the best units, by the way. It's really, really strong. And now it's just a case of just dropping stuff and trying to take out the heads again. So you probably agree, this definitely has very boss level feel to it. You know, there's quite a lot going on. They're dropping a lot of minions again. I want to switch it that way now. Okay, so we've taken out one of the heads. We want to take out the next head now. Got this. Nice. Bloodlusted. I'm just going to take out this. That's going to spawn there, which is pretty good. He hasn't attacked my base just again. He has dropped a razor ball. It's like a miner from Clash Royale. Drop him there. Drop him there to go and mine that gold. Okay. We're getting there, guys. We're getting there. Am I going into overtime? I really hope I'm going into overtime. And not draw. Yeah, we're into overtime. Fine. Now we just start dropping everything. I think we're going to be okay. I think we should be able to get through this. Usually when I'm in overtime, I just start spamming my my expenditure, but we should be good. Yeah, there we go. So we've completed the dungeon. The first level gave me the most trouble. And I'll show you what you get for winning a dungeon. And I'll talk about it in more detail because we're going to go into the deck building section next. But we claim this, and we now get get one of these special slots. So I'm going to upgrade my flying slot. Okay. You're probably wondering what the hell I've just done, so now we're going to go into the deck building section and talk about it. Right, deck building and all that goodness that comes with it. Now, for those of you that have played Clash Royale, you're going to see some very familiar styles. I don't own all of the... I don't yet own like all of the abilities. I have seen some of these in the shop. The only one I haven't seen is Core Hounds, which I do kind of want because I think Core Hounds are cool. But I own like the majority of the available cards that I've run into so far. Now, decks are built around leaders, as I've said. I own probably half of the leaders and don't own the other half of the leaders. Each leader has got a unique ability. Rend Blackhand. Your other flying troops cost 1 less whilst Rend is in play, but no less than 1. He heavily benefits having a flying orientated deck, which means I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 flying units in the deck, including Rend Blackhand, who is at the start a flying unit. So it's a very flying focused deck here. Decks are generally built to have most of your weaknesses covered. The big weakness that I have with this deck is like Ogre Magi is probably the biggest weakness that I have this deck because it's the thing that can kind of take out air units the quickest. And I don't have that much like... And the reason I've got Bat Rider in is it's good ground clearance. I've got a bit of physical damage in because otherwise I'm overloaded with elemental damage. I've got a little bit more AoE, although this could feasibly be replaced with something like, I don't know, Flame Elemental or even Flame Walker. But ultimately, I've quite liked having Blackrock Mage in there, or Blackrock Pyromancer. But this deck is like primarily built around flying. You will see these little special slots, and these are the things that I upgraded. When you play through dungeons, you're going to get these leader upgrade slots, and essentially it allows you to place a card with a matching trait, and you're going to get bonus levels for that card, which means you can level up certain cards and make them much more powerful by having them in certain slots in your leader decks. It's interesting. I think it makes deck building easier. I think it makes the flexibility of a deck harder because ultimately you're pigeonholed into using certain units from certain traits. Like these are, for instance, have to be from Blackrock. And there are certain sort of class of cards that you can get. Every card, as you can see, has certain traits. It's flying, 1 target, tank, siege damage, armored. It's flying, so it matches the flying trait, and therefore it's going to get 2 levels from that particular slot in my deck. BlackRock dominates the rest here. And so it kind of, I think, stifles a bit of creativity. But obviously there are multiple leaders. All of them have different kind of synergies. For instance, my Baron Rivendare deck, which is the one that I have climbed in the PvE side of things with the most, because Baron Rivendare is level 10. I've got Undead, I've got Unbound, and I've got Elemental. So there's a little bit of flexibility in terms of what you're doing. And what you do need to remember is that cards do have a lot of individual traits. So this is Elemental, this is Cycle, this is Flying. So I could have had that in any 3 slots that were either Cycle, Elemental, or Flying. So there are definitely sort of flexibilities when it comes to those slots, but it does, I think, kind of define your deck building around certain units. Now, each unit is upgraded by getting experience points for them. As you can see, my Necromancer is level 11 and now needs 375 experience, which is quite a lot. They also go up in rarity, which are these stars that you can get. And you can buy the uncommon and rare versions in the shop for a significant amount of gold. When you go up rarity levels, you're going to get the option to pick up a talent for that card. You can probably see where this is going. Those talents are also available in the shop for gold. And so, as you will probably notice, it's not just a simple case of leveling up your card. You have the rarity of the card, and then you also have talents of particular cards. It provides a hell of a lot of maneuverability and customization, but also you can see how quickly you could sink money into this game by trying to upgrade all the units and trying to get all of their rarities, and also trying to get all of their traits or their sort of talents or whatever. So basically, the amount of money you can pour into this game to upgrade cards is pretty limitless. And so I think that's a little egregious. Like I said in the intro, they are very, very, very predatory when it comes to trying to get you to buy as much as you can. You'll notice that every time you get to one of these new little areas, you're going to get yourself access to, this great offer of Blackrock Spire or whatever. And you'll notice that you'll have this shop here that shows you different things you can buy. I could buy the uncommon talent for my Necromancer if I wanted to for 250. And I think I probably will because I need it, right? So let's say I bought it. Okay, there's my uncommon talent that I've got for my Necromancer. I also get a bonus level, apparently, for doing so. And then that refreshes the shop and it brings things. If you already own the card in the shop, you get 1 star towards the next rarity level, etc. So it's very easy for you to kind of sink your gold into this game. And gold is primarily the resource that you're going to end up using for the most part. But yeah, I did also get a bonus level for my Necromancer there. So you get levels as well when you get talents for them too. So I've now got a level 12 Necromancer, which kind of is probably now my most powerful card, interestingly enough. But yes, so essentially you build your decks around certain leaders. I haven't actually used most leaders outside of General Drakaseth. This is General Drakaseth, Ren Blackhand, and also Baron. These are the 3 leaders that I've actually used right now. Obviously, there are a few more for me to unlock. And I would advise ultimately trying to unlock all of them that you can. You do also get this thing called collection level. And by the way, if you do pick this game and want to join Dad's Army, I made a little guild called Dad's Army, primarily for those of you that are dads, but also if you want to join it and you're not a dad, that's perfectly fine. Collection level refers to the amount of cards and like rarities and I guess that kind of stuff that you have in your collection. I would recommend, if you're going to spend your gold on anything when you begin, I would just recommend to unlock cards. Just unlock cards that you don't have for the first part, because by getting collection levels, you're actually going to get more experience every time you purchase a card. Your quests are going to give you more experiences. Your tomes will give you more experiences, and basically you get a significant bonus for having more cards. So it's basically trying to encourage you not to like save gold just for the cards that you own, because actually by unlocking new cards you get the collection level upgrades, and essentially you can level up your cards collectively much more quickly. They do offer ways for you to get relatively nice upgrades as a free-to-play player. There is these things called quests, and right now I've got a 5x bonus quest, and this essentially allows you to pick a card that you want to get experience for and basically essentially try and level that particular card up. And the cards will always be ones that you have in your current active deck, and then there'll also be like a random one as well. And these quests are all the time. So essentially you can do these quests whenever you want. There is no limit, I think, to how many quests you can do. So you can essentially, if you have all the time in the world, grind out quests for specific units and get the levels on them. So they do offer you ways to level up those cards through free-to-play methods, and I've never seen a point where I don't have a quest available. Now I'll quickly do this quest now. I won't show you it because I've shown you enough gameplay and the video is already quite long, but I will show you what happens after you've done the quest. And they are just random levels, by the way, from levels that you've completed on your PvE experience. Alright, that was relatively easy. Did it in one go. I'm going to get... Oh, I also got Common Batrider cards for completing it anyway, and I'm going to get a load of Common Batrider cards, which will actually level up my Common Batrider, or just my Batrider to level 9, I think. So yeah, that got me loads. Nice. I think I got a level 9 Batrider, and I find Batrider actually is a pretty useful card. If I click quest again, I'll just have a random quest, and I can choose any one of these 3 units. And if I keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it, you'll have quests available all the time. You do get a relatively paltry amount of quest XP, but it is obviously a free-to-play method to grind specific cards. Speaking of collections, if we talk about monetization, I've kind of talked about it in general, but essentially they have special offers for like megatomes and gold. You can purchase gold outright. You can also purchase arc energy, which is used to upgrade your units. You then have the daily offers. You do get free stuff, but you then have daily offers in terms of tomes and what you can spend your gold on. And then you also have the grid, which just allows you to like unlock rarity levels, new cards, whatever. You have these buttons that let you recycle the grid. Not really sure what the benefit of that is, other than if you're trying to search for something specific from the grid. And then you have these like very classic, very egregious kind of buy now, limited time only kind of deals. I've only bought one thing so far. I'm not tempted to buy anything else. I don't really feel like there's any point because I'm on a PvE side of things. But there you go. That's like the collection and the monetization side of things. It is very pay to win, but the primary pay to win comes in progressing on PvE. I'm going to talk about PvP now, and you'll see why the level discrepancy doesn't mean as much when it comes to PvP. So I realize I've already gone so far into detail on this game so far, but this is the PvP section. It is a very small subsection of the game, and I can only imagine that it's going to become expanded as the game goes on, because most people will not be particularly enthused getting stuck on PvE and not having a bit more of an expansive PvP section of the game to play with, I feel. I haven't played a huge amount of PvP. I've only progressed through like the first 2 ranks so far, but as you can see, it goes on for a very long time. And the way they've tried to level the playing field on this is that essentially you gain honor from your 3 highest heroes. Oops. Obviously, they try to vary it in terms of map, towers, or modifiers will change every 2 weeks. Ranks through bronze will set to all minis will be set to level 1, so there'll be no level advantage whilst you're playing in PvP in bronze. For ranks above 3000, and I'm just going to go back and show you what that means. So basically silver all the way to the end. So you really only get the absolute level playing field for your first intro PvP, let's say. Minis will be divided by 3 and then rounded up. So let's say you have a mini level of 8, it will be divided by 3 rounded up, which gives you 3. Let's say you have a mini level of 12, it will be divided by 3 to give you a mini level of 4. Now, a mini level of 1 discrepancy is not unplayable. A mini level any higher than 1, so 2, is where you do start to get some serious advantages. It will be remain to be seen what this actually looks like in practice. I envision that there will be some mega whales who will dominate from the very start. But as time goes on, that will become less and less apparent as people start to level up their minis. They have done some level of PvP balancing in terms of free-to-play versus paid. But obviously, it will not be a completely level playing field. However, I would also mention that, you know, as you've seen in the PvP, PvE rather, a lot of skill does come into this, so you will be able to an extent, outplay your opponents. Unfortunately, there are just kind of stat check type of interactions where you just, even if you play perfectly and you place perfectly and you draw aggro, you will just get beaten by pure stat check. But, you know, that's for us to be seen. In terms of seasons, they last 2 weeks. The map is the same for 2 weeks. There is a modifier to like towers or whatever that happens every 2 weeks, and you have Heroes Resolve, which is like a sort of an in-game modifier, which is interesting. Definitely kind of spices things up. Every 2 weeks, I think you're going to get bored of the same PvP map. I'm just going to put it out there, very much like Dungeons. I feel like the map is going to have to rotate, or there'll have to be a pool of maps that you can pull from. I feel like having the same PvP map for 2 weeks might be a little difficult, just because some of the maps kind of suck, and they're not as simplistic as Clash Royale. I think the beauty of having the same map in Clash Royale is it's quite simple, but there are definitely some ways that you play around it. The problem with WarCraft Rumble is that some maps just have certain ways to play them, and so by adding the complexities of the map, it doesn't come down to how you're placing and drawing aggro and countering with your units. Sometimes it kind of comes down to how you're playing the map. Is your deck built better for this map or not? And so it just adds extra levels of frustration, in my opinion, with the way some of the maps are built. You know, I'd almost love to see just like a standard PvP map, like a very simplistic one that doesn't have all these bells and whistles attached to it. But hey, you know, I'd love to hear what you guys think about that, because it feels like having these complex maps that, you know, sort of take away from that pure sort of gameplay interaction can sometimes be a bit frustrating. But that's kind of how they're dealing with PvP. I imagine that's going to expand as things go. And finally, there's these guilds. Like I said, come and join Dad's army. Feel free to join me. I'm be more than happy to have you. But overall, my thoughts on this game: it's fun, it's addictive. I very much like it. I can see that there is going to be issues around how unbelievably pay to win it is. It's got way more monetization features and way more sort of depth of kind of how much you need to do for each unit than Clash Royale has. So therefore, that just means there's more to spend on, and therefore more advantages for your opponents to get. But the very core of it is a good, fun PvE experience. PvP is somewhat balanced to deal with free-to-play versus paid, but not entirely level. There are modifiers that for instance, before this season on PvP, there was a modifier that made everyone's units the same level, no matter what. So that was like pure skill. I'd love to have seen that be a permanent feature of PvP. But of course, if you can't give people who pay a load of money some advantage in PvP, why would they pay a load of money in the first place? But there you go. Anyway, good game, really enjoyable. Definitely recommend it if you can get access to it, and I'm more than happy to have you guys in my guild. I'll also be doing individual level tutorials as shorts on my channel. It's been the first game in a while that I've been able to play competitively, because I can play it in bed really easily, and B, being quite excited about playing. So there you go, and I'll see you soon.